Greetings, young scientists. It's Mr. Del Prado here. I'm well aware that this is my third ed puzzle that I've given you this week, so feel free to yell at me when I get back from being sick. Um, but the big picture is this is kind of a short unit, and I think we can get through it before Thanksgiving, which again frees you up to have holiday with your families. So listen, we're not going to go through many slides here today, but it's kind of packed with some information. So it's not going to be long, but it's going to have a fair amount of information and some concepts that I'm going to ask you to understand. So where we last left off, we were just talking about molecules moving through the cell membrane, and we talked about diffusion, simple diffusion, and then facilitated diffusion. Well, there's lots of different molecules that your body needs in order to survive. And so, for example, if I just throw like sodium and potassium at you, those are two ions that are needed in nerve cells. Calcium is also needed in nerve cells as well. And we need to get those molecules in and out of the cell through specialized channels. But if we think about like the most important molecule here on Earth for living things, it's going to be water. And so water goes through simple diffusion. It diffuses right in and right out of the cell. But maintaining water balance in your cells is super important for living things in order to be alive and function properly. So the diffusion of water is called osmosis. And all osmosis is describing is how water gets into your cell and how water gets out of your cell, and under which conditions water would come into your cell and under which conditions water would move out of your cell. So for my visual learners out there, you can take a look at this. So if you want to imagine, again, don't get scared with this diagram, but if you want to imagine right down here in the middle, that's going to be a cell membrane. And we can say this will be the outside of the cell, this will be the inside of the cell. And we'll make the little green circle there sucrose. I'm going to make it a little bigger than glucose. Sucrose, you might remember, is a disaccharide. It's going to be found in things like cotton candy and the circus peanuts that sometimes Mr. Dell eats. But if you notice, sucrose, those green circles, they're too big to move across the cell membrane. So they're kind of like trapped over on the right-hand side there. But look at the water molecules. The water molecules can move, and they can move across that cell membrane. No concept has changed here. The diffusion of water is called osmosis. And what ends up happening is water, just like the other materials that we talked about, glucose and sodium and potassium, oxygen and carbon dioxide, water moves from high concentration to low concentration. I want you to take a look at the picture right here. And if you look at this, you can see on the left-hand side here, okay, there's a higher concentration of water. There's a lower concentration on the right-hand side. Why is that? Because the sugar is taking up some of the space over here. So water is going to diffuse down its concentration gradient. It's going to go from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. Again, I'm going to ask you to focus just on the blue circles there. They go from higher concentration to lower concentration. Mr. Dell, how come the green circles can't go to the other way? That's why I made it sucrose, because I'm going to say that it's too big to diffuse through the cell membrane. So you can look at osmosis in two different ways. You can look at it from a water perspective, in which case the water goes from high concentration to low concentration. But another way that you can look at it is that water moves towards the solution that has more solute in it. Solute is just materials that are dissolved in the solution. So in this case, the sugar is the solute. And you can see the water is moving towards the solute, again, because there's a higher concentration of water over here, lower concentration of water over here. And the water is rushing from high concentration to low concentration. But another way to think about it is that water is also rushing towards the higher concentration of solute, the higher concentration of the green sugar there. I hope that makes sense to you. The way that I best understand it is just to follow the little blue circles. Where are there more blue circles? Oh, there are more blue circles on the left-hand side. So what's going to happen is they're going to move over to the right-hand side. So osmosis is simply just the diffusion of water. And if you think about this in your daily lives, water's constantly going in and out of our cells. Okay. If we eat something that's super salty, water will rush out of our cells. We end up getting thirsty. If we drink a whole bunch of water, water will rush into our cells, and then we end up having to go to the bathroom. So that diffusion of water is kind of important because your cells need to maintain a very specific amount of water in them so that they can function properly. So here it is. This is the big slide. There's 5 terms that I would like you to know. I don't think memorizing these is going to help. I think you need to understand what's going on with each one of these terms. So in this term, the term hypertonic, this is when we would place a cell in salt water. A cell in salt water, then, the water would rush out of the cell and into the water. If you think of a cell like a water balloon, the cell would then shrink. That shrinking of a cell is called crenation. Okay? If you flip it, if you were to take distilled water and put a cell in distilled water, well, your cell has some salts in it. So then water would rush into the cell. The cell then, like a water balloon, would get bigger and bigger. Eventually, the cell could actually burst, which is called cell lysis. You might also hear the term cytolysis as well. That describes it literally like a cell getting so big, so filled with water that it actually bursts like a water balloon. The idea for your body is to maintain an isotonic environment where there is an equal amount of water on the inside of your body and on the outside of your body. That's why we're constantly drinking water and going to the bathroom. We're constantly trying to maintain homeostasis and maintain the correct water balance in our cells so that they can function properly. If you're thinking to yourself, well, Mr. Dell, how does water allow a cell to function properly? You're going to have to hold on a little bit to that because we'll talk about the chemical reactions that involve water a little bit later in the year. All I want you to know right now is this, is that water will rush into the cell and out of the cell, all in an attempt to be isotonic. We would like a cell to be at equilibrium or in an isotonic solution, an equal amount of water on the inside of the cell and on the outside of the cell. Here's some pictures of actual red blood cells. Okay, if you look at this, then you can see this is a normal red blood cell. This is a red blood cell that would be in an isotonic solution. You can see it looks like a regular donut there. Okay, this is a cell that is actually shrinking. It's going through crenation. This is a cell that is in a salty environment, and this cell needs water. This cell here is in a hypotonic environment. Water's rushing into that cell, and that cell is close to bursting. Okay, so hypertonic, water exits the cell. Hypotonic, the water enters the cell. And isotonic is when there's an equal amount of water inside the cell and outside of the cell. So I am going to ask you to draw a cell for me in a hypertonic, hypotonic, and isotonic solution. If you don't know what's going on and you don't understand how to draw that, that's okay. Google image it. You'll see plenty of pictures of cells in a hypertonic, hypotonic, and isotonic. If you could draw this for me in your book and describe each one, that will make me feel better that you're not just memorizing what's going on, that you're actually understanding what's going on. Your cells during your lifetime can be in any one of these 3 different environments, and our body is constantly trying to make it so that our cells are at equilibrium. I hope this makes sense. I'm going to give you a couple more tools to better visualize this for my visual learners so we can understand the process of osmosis. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.